Today, you are going to hear what is essentially a masterclass in how to build fitness, no matter what level of fitness you happen to have, how to build strength and hypertrophy, which is the growth of muscle fibers. So if you're seeking to get stronger or build bigger muscles, today you're going to learn how. I would love to have you share with us what you think most everybody or even everybody should know about principles of strength training and principles of, let's call it hypertrophy, power, and the other sort of categories of training.
I think I'll start it this way. There's about 9 different adaptations you can get from exercise. Fat loss is not one of those. It is a byproduct. So if you walk from the very beginning, the first one to think about is what we'll just call skill. So this is improving anything from, say, a golf swing to a squatting technique to running. And this is just simply moving mechanically how you want your body to move. From there, we're going to get into speed. So this is moving as fast as possible. The next one is power. And power is a function of speed, but it's also a function of the next one, which is strength. Once you get past strength, then the next one kind of down the list is hypertrophy. This is muscle size, right? Growing muscle mass is one way to think about it. After muscular endurance, this is your ability to do how many push-ups can you do in 1 minute. Past muscular endurance, you're now into more of an energetic or even cardiovascular fatigue. There's a handful of things you have got to do to make all of those things work. One of them is functionally called progressive overload. So whichever one you're trying to improve at, if you want to continue to improve, you have to have some method of overload. Adaptation physiologically happens as a byproduct of stress. So you have to push a system. So if you continue to do, say, the exact same workout over time, you better not expect much improvement. You can keep maintenance, but you're not going to be adding additional stress. In general, you have to have some sort of progressive overload, but this could come from adding more weights. This could come from adding more repetitions. It could come from doing it more often in the week. It could come from adding complexity to the movement.
So what are the progressive overload principles that are most effective over time for strength and hypertrophy?
With every one of those categories I talked about, you have what we call your modifiable variables. The very first one of those is called choice. So this is the exercise choice that you select. The second one is the intensity, and that refers to, in this context, not perceived effort, like, wow, that was a really intense workout. It is quite literally either a percentage of your 1 rep at max or a percentage of your maximum heart rate or VO2 max. So for the strength-based things, you want to think about what's the percentage of the maximum weight I could lift one time, and that's what we're going to call 1 rep max. The third one is what we call volume, and so this is just how many reps and how many sets are you doing, right? So if you're going to do 3 sets of 10, that volume would be 30, right? 5 sets of 5, that volume is 25. It's just a simple equation. How much work are you totally doing? The next one past that is called rest intervals. So this is the amount of time you're taking in between typically a set. Then from there, you have progression, which is what we started to talk about, this progressive overload. Are you increasing by weight or reps or rest intervals or complexity? Number one, especially for beginners, you want to make sure that the movement pattern is correct. Don't worry about intensity. Don't worry about rep ranges or any of these things. You need to learn to move correctly, and you need to give your body some time to develop some tissue tolerance so that you're not getting overtly sore. In general, soreness is a terrible proxy for exercise quality. It's a really bad way to estimate whether it was a good or a bad workout. On the same token, because stress is required for adaptation, you don't want to leave at the gym and feel like, I don't really do much. There has to be there. So if you think about soreness on a scale of 1 to 10, you probably want to spend most of your time in like the 3.
If a particular muscle is sore, does that mean that muscle is not ready to be trained again?
No, right? You can certainly train a sore muscle. You need to, I guess, have a little bit of feel on that, right? So if you're sore of like, okay, like, and you're moving around a little bit and you're like, man, this is a little bit sore, you can train. If you're like, I can't sit on the couch without crying because my glutes are so sore, probably don't need to train again. So you want to walk a pretty fine line. And for most people, I would say hedge a little bit on the side of less sore than more sore, because frequency is very, very important for almost all these adaptations.
Training frequency,
which is the last modifiable variable, right? Frequency, which is how many times per week are you doing that thing? Kind of our global things that we can play with. So when I'm trying to manipulate and get strength versus hypertrophy, or you know what, I want like a little bit of both, all those variables are the things that are going through my mind. Which one do I need to move in which direction so that I can get this outcome and not this outcome over here? For example, some folks might want to get stronger, but not put muscle mass on. Some folks are just kind of want both. If you manipulate those variables correctly, you can get exactly that.
I love that you mentioned the fact that it is possible to increase strength without increasing muscle size, at least not dramatically, because I know a lot of people who, for aesthetic reasons, they'd like to be stronger. They're hearing that having strong bones and strong muscles and tendons is great for longevity and for avoiding injury and so many other features of life. And yet they don't want to fill out progressively larger and larger sizes of clothing. The nervous system obviously plays an important role at the level of nerves controlling the contraction of muscle fibers. In other words, if I'm just trying to move a weight away from my body, pushing a bench press or an overhead press, I don't know that I want my mind thinking about the contraction of my medial delts. I think I want my mind in getting the weight overhead with the best proper form.
In terms of, there is a handful of very recent studies that have looked at what we'll call the mind-muscle connection. And this is doing things like imagine a bicep row, and you're simply looking at and watching your biceps, and you're thinking about contracting it harder, even though you execute the same repetitions at the same exact intensity. Initial indications are the mind-body connection are going to result in more growth than not.
Cold.
I do think getting into an ice bath immediately after a hypertrophy session is getting pretty close to you just shouldn't have done the session. It is detrimental.
Good to know.
I wouldn't do it, I guess is the most blunt way to put it. In general, best practices, don't get in the ice immediately after a work,out.
How long should I wait?
Well, in theory, the best answer we could give you would be 4 hours.
What about cold showers?
I don't think cold showers are going to do much. If you've been in both, you know that this is like, we're not playing the same game here.
Right. An ice bath or cold water, or true cold water immersion up to the neck with limbs in for 1 to 5 minutes is a completely different stimulus than in the cold shower. What about heat? When do you think most people could leverage sauna or hot baths to benefit their training and fitness and health?
You never have a hard time convincing people to get hot. Everyone feels good. Like, yeah, get a hot bath. Like, can you take more hot showers? Sure. There are a handful of studies that have looked at this immediately post, and it seems to even augment hypertrophy. You're just going to aid in blood flow. So you're going to put more nutrients in, more waste product out, metabolic stress, all that stuff is going through.
So after hypertrophy training, getting in the sauna for 20 minutes?
Yeah, whatever it needs to be. We don't have a good titration. What's the number minutes wise? We don't have a temperature titration.
Hot shower would be a weak second best.
I would say it's a very weak
second. Take a hot bath.
I think a hot bath is probably a lot closer to what you're looking for.
I want to talk a bit about overtraining and gauging recovery. There are a couple methods that I've heard about. The two that I'm aware of for gauging recovery of the nervous system and kind of systemic recovery are grip strength, especially grip strength on waking in the morning, and the so-called carbon dioxide tolerance test, the ability to do a long controlled exhale after a few rhythmic deep breaths. First question is this stuff fiction, fact?
It's not fiction at all. We've run a study in our lab looking at the associations between the CO2 tolerance and what we call trait and state anxiety. But in general, I'd say like there's a reason I'm still doing it. In terms of actual tracking recovery, the big picture is this. When we run through a full analysis, when we have an athlete go through our biomolecular athlete program, we're going to run and we're going to look at 3 major categories. Okay, category 1 are what we call visible stressors, and then we have hidden stressors, and then we have recovery capacity. Anytime the total stress load outpaces recovery capacity, you're either going backwards in your physical ability or you're reducing adaptability. Now you have levers to pull here. You can reduce stress intake or you can increase recovery capacity. What we want in an ideal situation is to be able to implement the most stress possible, because that's the driver of adaptation, recover from that. Now we get the most adaptation, and adaptation being simply a change, whatever change you want it to be. That's our gold standard, right? What are the 2 or 3 things we need to track that are these indicators of what we call performance anchors? So an anchor is something that kind of drags behind you or below you that slows you down. The analogy being, let's say we're going down one of these amazing canyon roads, and I won't say which canyon we're in so you can stay hidden here. And your car is going down at a certain velocity and you want to go faster. Most people's first impulse is to hit the gas, the accelerator. You want to push. Well, that's fine. But if your foot is on the brake and you push the accelerator, you might go a little bit faster. But number 1, you're wasting a lot of literal gas to go a little bit faster. And 2, you're burning your engine. You're going to blow. The easier solution is just take your foot off the brake. You're going to go faster by just stopping yourself. Then if that's not fast enough, we can hit the accelerator. Everyone wants to just push down, right? More stimulus, more optimization, bang, 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 bang here. Our first analytics are, where are these performance anchors? What's dragging you back? What's putting down the brake? I want to move those 2 or 3 things out of the way, and now let's see how far you get. Oh, look at that. Your recovery capacity has gone way up. Your adaptations are happening faster now. Well, we can do more work because you're recovering quicker.